Actually, I think they were surprisingly knowledgeable about this. I think they've done their homework. Hong Kong would not talk about being a virtual asset hub without permission from China. While it's true that there's skepticism, the skepticism is by people who are not in the space. So anyone who's actually fairly active in Web3, they understand that there's a macro, which is price volatility. I think for young people, there's an added advantage, which is that it's natural for them. Gaming is the way which we think is the fastest way for mass adoption for Web3.
睇片之前記得訂閱經一嘅 YouTube channel， 撳埋個鐘仔，下載我哋個 app， 仲有我哋經一共肥計劃 Patreon 已經上線啦，貼士密密送，有錢齊齊揾，快啲訂閱啦！幣圈今年接連受到打擊，除咗受到加息通脹影響之外，自己有又唔生性 ，Terra FTX 事件更加令人民幣色變。Animoca Brands 嘅創辦人蕭逸就話：呢啲危機的確令到新用戶卻步，但係舊有用戶依然咁活躍。佢自己就唔太擔心發展前景。
While it's true that there's skepticism, the skepticism is by people who are not in the space. So anyone who's actually fairly active in Web3, they understand that there's a macro, which is price volatility, but they're not gone, right? So that's the difference. I would say the cultural and the philosophical perspective of Elon is very compatible with blockchain and crypto. So I wouldn't be surprised if Twitter was going to do something more actively in the crypto space. So we're not losing customers, actually. Maybe the new customer growth might be slower. The second thing is people are actually still buying stuff. So when we did the Cool Cats football sort of club thing before the World Cup, the first 3 sales were sold out. We're on the second phase of a land sale, during the Christmas run for 4 weeks. The first one was sold out in hours. This one looks like it's selling out as well. So despite the market, people are still buying, right? It's just a case of maybe the value, because the token prices are lower, means that it's cheaper, right? But the activity is still the same.
幾年前開始，公司嘅定位就已經唔止淨係一間做 game 嘅公司，因為佢認為區塊鏈遊戲係一個最快嘅捷徑，令最多人認識咩係 Web 3.0。蕭逸就以投資 NFT 交易平台 OpenSea 為例，目的其實係想做大幣圈個餅，形成一個經濟生態圈。仲話 Animoca 有一日規模變到好大，數據都仲係由用戶擁有。
We were hoping that it would generate more sales of NFTs. That was the reason we invested in OpenSea. And of course, as the market grew, they grew and we all grew. So we stopped being a game company maybe 3 years ago. I mean, we are a game company in the sense that we build games and blockchain games. But gaming is the way which we think is the fastest way for mass adoption for Web3. Because most gamers believe they should own their digital items. They don't really think that they're renting it. First, I would say that much of the things that you can buy in the metaverse are not actually expensive. Development of, let's call it real estate in the sandbox, is more than just a sort of investment. I think investment is one angle for it, if you think that it's valuable. It's what you can do with it, right? You can actually make the experience better. I think for young people, there's an added advantage, which is that it's natural for them. It's very hard for my parents to be, building something in the metaverse. Maybe they can, but for most of them it's hard, right? And it doesn't just have to be Sandbox. There's many other environments in which you can sort of experience and build something.
經一共肥計劃推出獨家內容，每日都只係需要5蚊左右，就可以拎到絕密投資貼士。加入會員，立即訂閱。共肥不自肥，賺錢預埋你。目前 Web 3.0嘅概念仲未完全普及，蕭逸都承認基數好細。不過佢就提到呢幾年人數增長係好多，預期未來 Web 3.0嘅普及會有爆炸式增長，因為而家人人都有智能手機，加上 5G 技術，基礎建設已經準備好，可能我哋喺2-3年內就會睇到 Web 3.0時代嘅巨變。
Web3 hasn't hit mass yet, right? In fact, you could argue we're millions of users in Web3. We're not 100 million users yet, right? So by the time we hit 200-300 million users, you could now say we've really hit mass. So for instance, in 2020, there were only 200,000 people who had NFTs. That was just 2 years ago. 200,000, that's nothing, right? So you're seeing like a 10-20 times increase. But actually, the 10, 20 times increase is still a small number of people. No, I think in the next 2 to 3 years. The reason why is because in Web 1, you had infrastructure issues. So first of all, we didn't have smartphones. Broadband was hard to get. I think I remember in Hong Kong when we were getting the first broadband connections, this was maybe in 1997, 98, something like that, right? Today, we have 5G, right? We have Wi-Fi, we have great graphic cards, we have, Razer laptops, we have iPhones, right? Like all this stuff is already here. Right? If you remember 10 years ago, if you wanted to buy an iPhone, you had to wait in line. Today, you don't have that problem.
香港方面，財政司司長陳茂波有意開拓虛擬資產發展，提到想建立健全嘅監管框架。蕭逸覺得香港的確有金融方面嘅優勢，認為香港政府搞唔搞得成，同北京有密切嘅關係。
I think we can also make an assumption that Hong Kong would not talk about being a virtual asset hub without permission from China, right? So which is actually interesting. So we shouldn't look at this policy only as a policy for Hong Kong. We should also think of it as a signal, I think, from China in terms of their intention in the space. They all understood the potential. Are they super advanced? I don't know, right? Do they own NFTs? Maybe not all of them, right? However, I think they do understand it from the value of a financial ecosystem. So I think they're probably more ahead than most governments. Actually, I think they were surprisingly knowledgeable about this. I think they've done their homework. The other thing is I think that it may actually bring people from overseas to Hong Kong, right? Which I think Singapore originally attracted a lot of people in the Web3 space. And now I think they're all running into, some difficulties in Singapore. And I think this is an opportunity for Hong Kong to bring that talent here.
蕭逸覺得香港雖然起步比較遲，不過睇住其他地區撞過板，就可以行少啲冤枉路。加上香港市場一向以適應力強見稱，所以佢睇好香港日後成為虛擬資產樞紐嘅潛力。經一共肥計劃推出獨家內容，每日都只係需要5蚊左右，就可以拎到絕密投資貼士。加入會員，立即訂閱，共肥不自肥，賺錢預埋你。想緊貼更多理財、投資同生活嘅資訊，就繼續留意我哋唔同嘅平台，記得訂閱我哋 Patreon 同埋 YouTube Channel， 同撳埋個鐘仔啦。